Welcome to Life Stories, where we dive deep into the twists and turns of human experience. Today's story is one of betrayal, resilience, and the pursuit of justice. Ethan Matthews had everything: a successful business, a beautiful home, and a wife he trusted. But when he discovered the shocking truth of his wife's betrayal, everything changed. Follow Ethan's journey as he navigates a path of vengeance and strategy, fighting to protect everything he's built. Will he emerge victorious, or will his world come crashing down? Stay tuned to find out. Subscribe to the channel to start today's story. I had everything a man could want. By the time I was 42, I had built Matthews Engineering from the ground up, started in my garage, just a one-man operation. Over the years, I expanded it into a $30 million company with government contracts and military deals. Not bad for a kid from a small town whose father had worked at the steel mill until it closed, leaving us to struggle through a harsh childhood. My success was my pride, and it seemed like it was all I had. The view from my corner office in San Francisco was breathtaking, an endless sea of skyscrapers beneath the clear sky. It was the kind of office that many would envy, and for a while I let myself believe that I had achieved everything I had ever dreamed of. But the emptiness crept in slowly like a cold shadow. There was always something missing, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I ran my company with a sharp eye for detail and a work ethic that left no room for mistakes. My executive assistant, Mia, had been with me for 5 years, and she knew me better than anyone. Quiet and efficient, Mia had a way of anticipating my needs before I even spoke them. If I had a question or a problem, Mia had already thought of the solution. I trusted her completely, and unlike my wife Caroline, who seemed to only anticipate how to spend my money, Mia was a rock I could always rely on. It was just after 2 p.m. when Mia buzzed me through the intercom. "Mr. Matthews, your toot is here," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Send them in, Mia," I replied, always appreciative of her no-nonsense attitude. "And make sure the Anderson proposal is ready for tomorrow." "Already done," she responded, and I couldn't help but smile at her efficiency. The meeting with the Defense Department went well, securing a contract that would ensure Matthews Engineering's profitability for years to come. I should have been elated, but I wasn't. The excitement, the satisfaction of the deal, it all felt hollow, fleeting. I checked my watch. 7:30 p.m. Caroline would be at another one of those charity galas by now, pretending to network while she rubbed shoulders with the city's elite. She called it business, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it. My phone buzzed. A text from Caroline. "Don't wait up." Dinner with the Prescotts and the foundation board. The Prescotts again. Lawrence Prescott was old money, and his son Jackson had recently taken an interest in Caroline's Children's Literacy Foundation. Too much interest, if I was being honest. I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that Jackson's interest in my wife was more than just philanthropic, but I pushed the thought aside. I had bigger things to worry about. "Working late again?" Mia asked, her coat in hand, ready to leave. "Just wrapping up. Big win today," I replied, trying to muster some enthusiasm. "Congrats, Mia. You deserve it." Her warm brown eyes showed genuine happiness for my success. There was no pretending with Mia. She didn't need to feign interest or care. She was honest, and that's why I trusted her. After Mia left, I sat in the quiet of my office, staring at my phone. Another text from Caroline. "Don't wait up." Another late night. It was almost as if she didn't even care anymore. I couldn't help but feel the weight of her absence, even though she was just a few miles away at some lavish event with people I didn't trust. That night, I found myself sitting alone in the kitchen, pouring myself a drink. It wasn't something I did often, but tonight felt different. The bourbon, a gift from one of our contractors, slid down my throat in a smooth burn. Tomorrow was our anniversary, and I had planned a surprise trip to Bora Bora. Maybe, just maybe, that would rekindle whatever we had lost along the way. But when I checked my bank account before heading upstairs, my heart stopped. A withdrawal confirmation. $50,000 to Harrington Holdings, Caroline's father's failing company. the one I had refused to bail out a few months earlier. That withdrawal needed Caroline's signature, and yet she hadn't said a word about it. A crack, barely noticeable at first, but it was there. It was the first sign that something was very wrong. The morning after our anniversary was no different from any other. I woke up to an empty bed. Caroline's side of the mattress was untouched, the sheets still perfectly neat, as if she hadn't slept there at all. I glanced at my phone. No messages from her, an unusual silence that gnawed at me. Even when she was out late, she always sent a quick text, something brief to keep up appearances. But this time, there was nothing. I got out of bed, my mind racing. I had never questioned Caroline before, not like this. For years, she had been the woman I loved, the woman I thought I could trust with everything. But now, something was different. I couldn't explain it, but I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into a void I had never seen before. I showered and headed to my home office, hoping the normal routine would settle my thoughts. But as I walked past the sitting room, I noticed Caroline's laptop sitting open on the coffee table. I needed to check our anniversary trip confirmation numbers, which she had promised to email to herself. Maybe there was something, some small piece of evidence that could shed light on what was happening. As I moved the mouse to wake up the laptop, a notification popped up on the screen. It was an email from Sheffield Law Partners. My heart skipped a beat. The subject line read, Divorce Strategy, Asset Division. I froze. For a moment, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. This couldn't be real. I clicked the email, my hands trembling. It was addressed to Caroline, and the contents hit me like a punch to the gut. The email detailed a strategy for filing for divorce, using evidence of infidelity to gain leverage in asset division. The lawyer's advice was chilling. File first. Your husband's emotional neglect and long hours give us additional leverage in court. This is your chance to secure the business interests, property holdings, and retirement accounts before he discovers the affair. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced as I read further. Caroline's plan to take everything, including my company, was laid out clearly. There were even instructions on how to manipulate the court's perception of me, painting me as the negligent husband, the workaholic who had abandoned her. But it wasn't just the business interests she was after. No, it was much darker than that. Caroline had been planning this for months, carefully orchestrating her moves, calculating every step. The shock was overwhelming. I had known deep down that something wasn't right. The late nights, the sudden interest in my business, the way she seemed to slip further away from me. But this was betrayal on a level I had never imagined. I couldn't stay still. I needed answers. I began going through her emails, each one a painful revelation. The messages between Caroline and Jackson were damning, affectionate, intimate, full of plans for the future, for their life together, once they secured my wealth and business. And then there were the others, texts with her father, Victor, where she discussed using my company's insider information to save his failing business, Harrington Holdings. I was a fool. The withdrawal from my bank account, the late nights, the strange interest in my contracts, all of it now made perfect sense. Caroline wasn't just planning to leave me. She was planning to destroy me, to take everything I had worked for. I closed the laptop and sat back in the chair, the weight of the discovery pressing down on me. Betrayal. It was the one thing I could never forgive. My father had drilled that into me after he and my mother had split. Trust must be earned, he always said, and once it was broken, it could never be repaired. But there was no time for despair. I had to act. I forwarded everything to my personal email, every damning piece of evidence, and returned the laptop to its original place. It had to look like nothing had changed. I called my lawyer, Bennett Cole. He was an old friend from college, someone I trusted implicitly. Bennett, I said, my voice cold, I need to see you today. Don't talk to anyone about this meeting. 3 hours later, I was sitting across from Bennett, watching his face as he read through the emails. He looked up at me, his expression one of disbelief. Jesus, Devin, he said, removing his glasses. I've seen ugly divorces before, but this This is on another level. I need options, I replied, my voice tight with anger. I need to protect my business. This isn't just a divorce, it's an attack. Bennett's eyes narrowed as he thought for a moment. Legally, you need to file first with this evidence and protect your assets immediately. But given what they're planning, he hesitated. What? What are you thinking? I pressed. They're not just after your money, Devin. They're targeting your business. Using insider information? That's criminal. We might need to go to the FBI with this. I shook my head, my mind already racing ahead. Not yet. I need to know how deep this goes. I need to find out who else is involved before we do anything drastic. And just like that, the game had begun. The next few days were a blur of planning and strategizing. I knew that if I was going to protect everything I had built, I had to think ahead, 3 steps ahead, just like my father had taught me. Trust must be earned, and betrayal was never forgiven. It was time for me to remember those lessons and make sure that Caroline's plans didn't destroy me. I started with the basics. I opened new bank accounts, ones where Caroline and I had no history. I transferred the majority of my shares in Matthews Engineering into a trust controlled by my sister, Teresa. Teresa was a federal judge, and beyond reproach, there was no way anyone could accuse her of being involved in any of this. My retirement funds were moved into protected accounts, ones that couldn't be touched in a divorce. Every asset I had worked for, every piece of my business that Caroline might have thought she could claim, gone. Mia, ever loyal, was brought into my plan. I needed her to prepare documentation to transfer the company's intellectual property to a new holding corporation. She didn't ask any questions. She just did as I asked, without hesitation. When she asked if it was legal, I assured her it was just restructuring for tax purposes. I couldn't afford to let anyone know what I was really doing. All the while, I kept up the charade with Caroline. I confirmed our anniversary dinner reservations. I wrapped the diamond bracelet I had bought months ago for her. I kept a smile on my face as if everything was fine, as if nothing had changed, all the while knowing that it was all a lie. The woman I had once loved was orchestrating my downfall, and she didn't even know I was onto her yet. When Caroline returned from her meetings with the foundation, I could smell the lingering scent of Jackson's cologne on her clothes. It made my stomach churn, but I pushed it down. I couldn't let her see what I had already discovered. I had to stay calm, stay in control. The next step was about collecting evidence. I hired a private investigator to follow Caroline and Jackson, to document their every move. I installed hidden cameras in the house. Nothing overt, just small, discreet devices that would capture every conversation, every slip of the tongue, every moment of betrayal. And the evidence didn't take long to accumulate. It didn't take long for Caroline to slip up. I watched the footage of her talking to Jackson on the phone. She laughed about how I was so wrapped up in my precious business that I hadn't even noticed the money she'd been moving out of our joint accounts. My blood boiled as I listened to her laugh, but I remained calm. I had to. This wasn't about revenge. It was about protecting everything I had worked for. The final betrayal came when I discovered that Caroline had taken photographs of confidential contract specifications from my office and sent them to Jackson. He was using the insider information for his own investments. That was when I knew I had to act, and I had to act fast. I called Bennett. I need to get out of here for a while, I told him. I'm planning something different for our anniversary. I need to make sure this goes according to plan. I arranged to leave town, telling Caroline I had an emergency meeting with a military contractor in Washington. She didn't seem to care. After all, she had plans with Jackson. It was time for me to disappear, to let her believe she was winning, while I made my next move. I drove to a remote lake house I owned, a place only Teresa knew about. There, I prepared everything: emails, photos, recordings, all the evidence I had gathered. It was time for Bennett to file for divorce, to make sure that when Caroline made her move, it would be too late for her to take anything from me. I texted Mia from a burner phone, telling her I'd be unreachable for a few days. If anyone asks, I'm in Washington, I said, knowing she would take care of things while I was gone. The trap was set. The game was on. And Caroline had no idea that the life she had planned for herself had just started to unravel. In the end, justice had its way. Caroline, in her desperation, tried to cover her tracks, but it was too late. The evidence I had gathered, the careful steps I had taken, all led to the final confrontation. She thought she could take everything from me, destroy the life I had built, but in reality, she was the one who lost everything. I watched from my office, the San Francisco skyline glittering beneath me as the pieces of my life fell back into place. The contract with the Navy had been secured, my business was stable again, and my company's stock had bounced back stronger than ever. Caroline was gone, her reputation shattered, and Jackson was left to face the consequences of his greed. Mia had stood by me through it all, loyal and unwavering, and in the quiet aftermath, our relationship began to change. We had fought together, and now we were ready to build something new. This time, it would be different. This time, it would be built on trust. I looked back at the path I had walked. Betrayal had taught me harsh lessons, but it had also made me stronger. I was no longer the man who would let others take advantage of him. I had learned to protect what mattered most, and I had learned that trust isn't given, it's earned. As the sun set over the bay, I knew that the story of my life was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, but I was ready. With the right people by my side, there was nothing that could break me. It was time to move forward, 3 steps ahead of the past that tried to destroy me. And so I closed the door on that chapter of my life, knowing the best was yet to come. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more life stories.